Welcome back to Mornings with Dave King and Matt Martin, and we're both here, and we're going to go directly to the phones. We've got Dr. Michelle McCord on, Superintendent of Frenship ISD, and we're glad to have you here. Thank you for coming.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. Now, the whole world has gone topsy-turvy because of the COVID-19 virus, and I know that every school's having to do and every school system's having to do kind of their own thing as far as getting every classroom together ready for students to come to the school, as well as online, which is something that I don't think schools have ever had to do before. Could you tell us how Frenship's going about opening up their schools?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Yes, each school district is having to do, some things in their own way, but I would say that all of the school districts, particularly on the South Plains, have many things in common, and that is all following the CDC guidelines for sanitizing and disinfecting high-touch areas. Also, we're following the Texas Education Agency guidelines for reopening schools. And Texas Education Agency, of course, sort of the regulatory agency, if you will, by which we follow their guidelines. So particularly in Frenship, we have done lots of things. We have put lots of people's jobs changed, but one of the areas that I want to give a shout out to that they have done a lot of training and extra work is our custodians. Our custodians in Frenship have gone through lots of training to make sure we understand sanitizing, cleaning, particularly for COVID. We've made some operational adjustments, but at the same time, want to make sure that while we have some differences, I think it's important for our students and our teachers when they come back to have some wins, so that it does look like it did when they left on March the 13th in many ways.
Yeah. So one of the differences that y'all have there at Frenship compared to we talked to Lubbock ISD recently.
Yes,
is that y'all aren't going to allow those that are staying home to be a part of extracurricular activities. What was behind that decision?
Yes, that has been a popular question, and that was a tough decision for us to make, but we base that decision upon this. It's an academic decision. So as you mentioned at the beginning of the call, is we've really not done this virtual learning before. So last spring when the school shut down, we did call learning virtual learning, but it was really very basic, and it was very lenient. We changed our grading policy to make it more lenient, and what we're looking at in the fall is a much more rigorous virtual learning experience. And then for us, really, it's just that we've gotten better at doing virtual learning, but we're still a work in progress. And our primary focus is ensuring that our virtual learners don't fall behind and that we stay laser focused on academics before we stir in extracurricular activities. So I would say this, that, none of us knows how long this these days of COVID are going to last, and so we're willing to revisit that decision at a later date. But for now, we've got to make sure that we, as Frenship and our educators, are tooled up to make sure that we've got the academic piece correct before we add in extracurriculars.
Okay, so I know that that Lubbock is allowing them to kind of move back and forth, I guess, every 9 weeks, kind of decide which direction they're going to go. Do y'all have something like that?
Yes, we do. And as a matter of fact, that's a requirement from the Texas Education Agency, is that you must allow students and their families to, you can only sort of commit them to one style of learning per grading period. Our grading periods happen to be every 6 weeks, and so after 6 weeks. I'm sure we'll begin to ask the question after 4 or 5 weeks, what students and their families, if they're wanting to, again, turn to face-to-face or actually move from face-to-face to virtual, and give them the opportunity to do that. Because it's new for families, too, and everybody's experience is different, and also it's fluid. What works for a family the first 6 weeks, something in their circumstances may change, so we want to give them the flexibility to move in and out. We hope they don't do lots of moving in and out because, it's going to create big changes for students. And students have already gone through lots of changes just through, they've missed out on a lot of different things, not just academically, but, their summer activities and all sorts of things. So we hope that they kind of find a rhythm, if you will, and a routine, and we can stick with that and then get good at it.
Yeah. One of the things that we get probably...
Dr. McCord?
Yes, sir.
This is Dave, and I did want to ask, I know that you guys are under massive construction projects out there. How has this virus affected those? Are they still continuing on?
Well, we actually were slated to have a bond election in May of 2020, and we postponed that election. That's a great question. So we actually have not undertaken those construction projects because we still have to have a bond election. So we're going to have a bond election in November.
I think I have confused you with another ISD that has a big project going. But okay.
Well, that's okay.
Well, you guys all look alike.
Well, that's a compliment.
Okay. Well, that's good. Let's see. It's 7:14. Matt, you want to go ahead and take a quick break and then come back?
Yeah, we'll take a quick break. This is News Talk 95.1 FM, 790 AM KFYO. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Mornings with Dave King and Matt Martin on KFYO. We're going to go directly back to the phones and talk to Dr. McCord with Frenship ISD, Superintendent Frenship ISD. Dr. McCord, one of the biggest questions we have, and I know that a lot of it, again, has to do with the CDC as well as TEA guidelines, but what are the mask policies for both your teachers and your students out at Frenship ISD?
Yeah, so we are, of course, going to follow Governor Abbott's order, GA 29, and we are going to require that students age 10 and up and all teachers and all staff wear masks when social distancing isn't feasible. And, so of course we're not going to ask kids to wear masks while they're participating in an activity or while they're eating lunch, but the other times we are going to ask them to do that because that is what is required by the governor. Now, I will say this. So the governor's order says 10 years of age. And so for us, we thought we simplified that a little bit. So instead of starting with all 10-year-olds, because most kids turn 10 while they're in the fourth grade. So we have some 9-year-olds and some 10-year-olds. So instead of having some kids in fourth grade wearing masks and some not, we just went with the fourth grade. So rather than an age, we went with a grade level. Okay. So students in grades 4 through 12, along with visitors and staff, we're going to adhere to the governor's orders.
Okay, and one of the other questions that I have, just because I just see it as kind of a nightmare scenario, I saw that a school in Georgia had this problem. What happens if one of the kids or one of the kids' families end up getting a positive test for COVID-19? Are you going to have to close down the school, just close down the classes? Is there going to be a 14-day period that the kids can't come back to class? Are they going to go to virtual? I know it's a lot there.
Yes,
but it's
that
just,
is a great question.
It's one of those things that I think parents all over are wondering what's going to happen when this happens.
Yes. Well, that is a great question, and I want to answer that question. But I also, before I forget, I want to let you know, and to all the listeners, that we have specific guidance for how we're going to handle all of these things in what we call a reopening friendship. And we have a parent guide and a teacher guide, and it's on our website, and it's basically a booklet that is, the administrator version is about 30 pages long, but in everyone's guide on page 6 of that guide, it talks about specifically what needs to happen if student or staff has COVID symptoms or if there's a lab-confirmed case. And our guidance from TEA right now is if we learn of a lab-confirmed case of a student or a staff member, let's say a teacher in particular, then what we're going to do is, one, you don't shut down the whole school. You don't do that. That's not what the CDC recommends nor what TEA recommends. Then what we do is we follow the TEA guidelines, and that is basically, and I'm gonna read this little part. It's real close. It says the school will close off areas that were heavily used by the individual with a lab-confirmed case until non-porous surfaces in those areas can be disinfected unless more than 7 days have already passed since that individual was on campus. And then what we do, and probably all the listeners, if you have been out and about or work out in the public at all, there have been positive cases all over the place, and you have to, every case is a little bit different in determining when was the last time that person was at work or the child was at school, who all did they have close contact with. So contact tracing comes into play. Also, if they're fourth grade and up, the teacher had on a mask and the kids had on a mask, then you're not required to, the mask protects you from that. And so we don't have to quarantine everyone. So I would say those are our first steps, contacting the health department, walking through with them what the specific scenario was, and then determining, I want to be honest with you, there may be situations where we do have to quarantine a whole class. You know, usually an elementary classroom, you've got 22 kiddos and a teacher, and we may have to quarantine that whole class. And if we do, then we'll convert quickly to, that's the good thing about having learned from the shutdown last year. Frenship has spent literally millions of dollars on devices and hotspots, so we can quickly switch to virtual for that particular class for a maximum of 14 days, but in some cases it won't be. It just depends on the circumstances.
Okay.
So
tell
it's
me,
kind of hard to paint with a broad brush.
Where do you quarantine these kids?
Where do we quarantine them? Well, of course, at home. We don't have like a little spot where we're going to keep them.
You send them home. Okay.
Yes, we send them home, and the teacher. Just like, so this isn't new. This is just like everyone else is doing when they see positive cases, in the workplace, or what we call a either direct exposure or close contact. And TEA defines for us with guidance from the CDC with the definition of close contact. And so the other thing that I wanted to say, and I'm sure that Dr. Rollo said this as well, is that schools are a critical part of the infrastructure of a community and play a critical role in supporting the whole child, not just academic achievement. And so we see ourselves as vital to the community, as a hospital, as the fire department, and in the police department. And we know that in many ways the economy can't really fully reopen until schools reopen because parents have to go to work. And so, for the most part. And so we're just going to stay open. We're going to stay open. We're going to follow all of the orders from the governor, and we're going to be in close collaboration like we have been with our local health officials. But I do want to say that I don't see shutdowns for the whole school coming. It might be a smaller group.
Okay. Well, Dr. McCord, I'm sorry we've run out of time, but I thank you for coming on, and we'll try to get you on again here soon so that we can see how school is going.
Yes, that August 17th is the first day. Thank you guys
All right.
so much for having me.
Thank you. We'll be right back on Mornings with Dave King and Matt Martin.